Hello there, I'm the G Groove, and this is commentary on my run of Spider-Man 2 Enter Electro in the no skips hardware category in 33 minutes and 12 seconds. Spider-Man 2 Enter Electro is the sequel to Spider-Man, aka Spider-Man 2000, aka SM2K, for the PlayStation, N64, and PC. Oh, and Dreamcast. In some ways, this is a more straightforward run than SM2K. It's a shorter game, and the levels are a lot more linear. There's a lot more straightforward get to the end levels than SM2K. However, this run can in some ways be harder because this game runs poorly, at least on hardware, to the point where emulation is actually the preferred way of playing the game. And also you have to deal with a bit more RNG than SM2K. This first level here, Enter the Web Head, is all about getting to the end. What allows me to get to the end the fastest is cutting web lines. By default, Spidey will shoot 2 web lines when he swings, but if you drop by pressing the jump button and then push the swing button again, he'll start a brand new swing. The first line is always the fastest, so you'll move fastest by doing so. Next up is Burglary Interrupted. In this one, there's 4 groups of thugs we have to take out. We took out 2 from a cutscene that were shooting at us when we were trying to stop a villain getting away in a motorcycle. Next, we have to stop these guys who just exploded a car by smothering the fire. Thirdly, we're going to go into a intersection of alleyways for 4 guys that are going to try to take us out. The fastest way to defeat enemies in this game is by using what's called impact webbing. Most people would call it a web ball. It is up and the web button. One thing Enter Electro brings to the table that SM2K did not have is the ability to shoot impact webbing in the air. It's one of 2 things that allows you to break this game in half in terms of difficulty. It allows us to defeat enemies really quickly, like I just did. These 2 blew up a coffee shop, because they're evil. Or maybe they like Monster more than coffee, because they're weirdos. Here, we're swinging to this building. Spidey is going to say something about how cool he is at beating these thugs, but that his signal tracer, which he put on the motorcycle I just mentioned, the signal is growing weak, so you need to take to the rooftops. The fastest way to get up to the trigger point is to aim and push the web swing button to zip. If the target is close enough that a swing wouldn't be necessary, Spidey will simply zip to the target. It's an integral part of movement in both Enter Electro and SM2K. In fact, that's how most of the skips in SM2K happen. Because Spidey's hitbox is very thin while he zips. And it's the fastest form of movement. This level here, Rooftops by Night, is another one that's about getting to the end. However, there is a task we'll need to accomplish later. This can be a surprisingly easy level to mess up because of the task you need to accomplish and how the frame rate dips when you get close. But I might as well talk a bit more about how the run works since we're kind of at a slow point. So as I said, zipping is the fastest way to move. Then it's web swinging, the first line of your web swing, and then jumping. So you want to be running as little as possible if you can. And then you want to either have a zip ready or a swing ready at every opportunity you can. Here's where things get crazy. As you can see, the frame rate significantly drops here when there's a lot of action. This game was not very well optimized for the PlayStation. You have to stop all 3 machine guns by either taking out the machine guns or taking out the thugs. It cannot be a combination of those things. Like, you can't take out 2 thugs and 1 machine gun. It either has to be all 3 machine guns or all 3 thugs. So the fastest way to do it is to take out the thugs by shooting impact webbing. Like I said, it takes them out instantly. And in fact, that is going to be a big part of what's going on here. Warehouse 66. There is simply a finite number of thugs here that we have to defeat. We're going to go around a specific path that gets us across the warehouse without retracing our steps too much. The idea is, because you can shoot impact webbing in the air, a new feature to Enter Electro that's not in Spider-Man 2000, we can really quickly take out these thugs. If you do it with punches and kicks, it would take forever. But by using impact webbing and following this path, we easily beat this in around a minute. In fact, I think the world record holder for this game in the any percent category does this in under a minute. The level ends when Spidey says there's one more guy left. We'll take him out, and since Spidey's going to say a few things before the level ends, we run to these barrels to try to get web cartridges. The more webbing you can have in these games, the better. We're at our first boss fight here, Shocker. Now this fight is kind of infamous because the game forces you to use one of the new features of this game, the lock-on, to defeat him. To defeat him fast enough that the fire doesn't reach the oil drums, as you can see in the bottom, you have to use the auto lock-on to lock onto a box and yank it onto Shocker. It's really difficult to beat him without using this feature because Shocker will keep attacking you and knocking you back. So it's a fast fight, but only if you know what you're doing. Even casually, that fight is frustrating. In fact, I couldn't even finish that fight as a kid because I was not very good at aiming. This level here, Smoke Screen, this is one of the few levels that's really about true RNG, as in random number generation. As you can see, there are 4 thugs that each removed a key from this bomb. We have to go around, find the 4 thugs, and put the keys back in the bomb to disable it. Each of the 4 keys has 3 different spots where it can spawn. There's a certain path runners will follow to essentially cross all the major areas where the thugs could possibly be. It is frustrating that sometimes you won't get groups of thugs that are close, but if you've played the game enough, you'll have an idea of, like, I got the red key here, so I know, okay, I know the thugs won't appear in this spot or this spot because I got the red key. Here I get the green key, so I know, okay, don't go to this spot or this spot. That helps out with process of elimination and thinking quickly. You can get lucky with this, or you can get fairly unlucky with it. I've had times where I have like 1 minute and 30 seconds plus left on the bomb because of how close the thugs and the keys were. Sometimes I've had less than a minute. If there's less than a minute when I start putting the keys into the bomb, then I just reset. I definitely know where the blue key is because in my run I had before this one, with my time of 33 minutes and 20 seconds, my upscaler stopped working for a split second, and I got a blue screen as I picked up the blue key. So, the run was still verified. The runners could still tell it was one continuous recording, but it was kind of funny that as I got the blue key, I got a blue screen. I call this split Megadeth because the level is called Hangar 18, and Hangar 18 is the name of a Megadeth song. This level features a kind of diagonal look-down perspective. This game has a lot of those, and they're kind of awkward to control in a 3D space, like a true 3D space. You know, this isn't like whatchamacallit, like Link's Awakening or something like that. Playing with the D-pad does help alleviate how awkward the controls feel, but this one, and another kind of infamous level we're getting into later, can feel a little tricky to work with. But that's nothing compared to what we've got coming up next, Wind Tunnel. Now, if you know anything about Spider-Man 2 Enter Electro, you know that the game was altered due to 9/11. One of the things that was altered is this level. If you had played the original print of the game, it would have told you need to web up the plane. But they removed that prompt, so you just have to listen to Spidey say, I need to web the plane. That is the fastest I've been able to web up the plane on the NTSC version. It turns out in the PAL version, because of the different frame rate, you can actually web up the plane right at the start using the instant lock-on. You can see that in Spyran's runs, because he's from the UK, so he plays the PAL version generally. To catch a thief here is another get to the end level. Though it does bring up something funny, and I just realized I forgot to bring it up in Rooftops by Night. In these levels, there's a specific path you're intended to take casually, but speedrunners have found like an alternate path on the side, like the buildings that are set up as decoration tend to be the faster path rather than the intended one. At least for the first half or 1/3 of the level, The game intends you to go on those cranes, but if you go to the buildings off to the side, it's a much shorter path and a much faster one, especially if you cut your web lines. Same goes with those buildings I went across in Rooftops by Night. Also, fun fact, this building we're swinging around is literally an asset reuse from SM2K. It's a building you pass on the way to the Daily Bugle and the first boss fight with Scorpion. That's something we get a laugh out of every time we play this game. Not really much else I can say about this level. It is pretty straightforward, though it is funny to lock onto the thugs and kick them off. I guess I could share a brief story about this game. You see, when I was a kid, one of my best friends at the time had Spider-Man 2000, and I wanted to copy that game so bad, especially after playing it a bunch at his house. So I called him and asked him where he bought it, and he said GameStop. So my dad took me on my first ever trip to GameStop to try to find a copy of this game. Or of Spider-Man 2000, and I found this game. Now, I don't know if I was confused because this was a Blockbuster copy and didn't have a case, or if I thought, close enough, but I bought Enter Electro instead, so I actually spent more time with Enter Electro growing up than Spider-Man 2000, which is kind of crazy. In Darkest Night, this level, there is a series of switches you need to push to open a door at the end. Of course, because we are speedrunners and we've played this game a lot, we know what switches we should hit on the way so that we don't have to backtrack. The combination that Spyran uses in his world record in the 90% category is what I go for, because then you only have to hit switches in 2 of the 4 areas, whereas the path I went by before I started looking at other people's runs for inspiration had me hit switches in 3 areas. So big props to Spyran for taking the time to figure that out. Or anybody else that took the time to figure it out. It might not have exactly been him. His run was just one of the ones I studied. Heart of Darkness here. This is our second level in the train yards. This is also the first one that would have a skip. So if I was playing the skips category, this is the first one where I would go out of bounds. However, I personally feel the skips are a lot harder in this game than in SM2K. In fact, I still haven't gotten all of them down that well. I was hoping to learn the skips enough to potentially offer the skips category as an alternative, but I don't think there was any way I was going to have it ready in time for submission to the event, so I decided to showcase the any percent no skips run that I did. But at times I do prefer no skip runs because it forces you to play more of the game and show off more of the gameplay loop. But that's just my opinion. There are still a lot of skips I enjoy. SM2K has some really good ones. There is something kind of funny about this level, though, and in a way makes it harder to do. Like I said, the skip is hard, but if you can figure it out, it's probably better to do that than to play this level normally, because when you activate a switch, there's a cutscene. The cutscene plays in-engine, and enemies can attack you while the cutscene is playing. You might notice I'm button mashing and hitting guards because I have been killed during the in-engine cutscenes in this level before. So maybe it is a good thing we've got to skip for it. We are now about to approach Catch That Train, one of my least favorite levels as a kid. One that's kind of infamous casually, but when you know the tricks, it's actually not that bad, at least on easy in the speedrun context. I haven't played this game on normal in years, so maybe it's harder than I remember there. So the villain here is Sandman, and he's creating these sand walls preventing us from getting on the train, which has some stolen goods that Spider-Man is tracking. The thing is, Sandman can randomly, he can respawn. You will hear like a sound that's him going into the ground, and then he'll reform wherever Spider-Man is standing, like right there. The thing is, you want him to form not on top of Spider-Man, because if you does, you'll get stunned. So what you need to do is you need to trick him into spawning somewhere relatively close to these forklifts, which are the fastest way to break a sand wall. Not close enough that he could damage them, but close enough that he won't try to go back into the ground and respawn over Spidey. Now, thankfully, if he's about the distance that you saw him here, he'll try to attack you, but he will just far enough to not hit you. Plus, also hitting the auto lock-on button allows us to more easily throw the forklift at the wall. The diagonally down camera does make this one a little bit tricky. That's the awkward level I was mentioning earlier. One of my least favorites growing up, but at least it's over with. Oh yeah, I did accidentally click yes to save there. That's why you saw the menu twice. You have to click no to skip it and save yourself some time. So I lost a bit of time there. Next up is Gangland. This is the second level that has a skip. Once again, we are not doing it in this run. But even then, it's not the biggest skip in the world. It only saves a few seconds. But then again, the world record run of any percent is like in the 20-something minutes category. So a few seconds does mean a lot. This level involves hostages. On the easy difficulty, hostages cannot die. So you don't have to take out every single thug, but you at least have to take out the thugs that are guarding the hostages so they can run away. Now, this next part here, we're going to go to the second floor, but we have to let Spider-Man's spider sense go off first. Otherwise, the loading for the second area is not triggered, and you'll fall into a black void. I lost some runs before learning that, because I was trying to go fast, yanking off the plate to get into the vent, only to realize, oh, wait, it didn't load. Why did it not load? Thankfully, I was, at the time, doing a stream with my friend Fetty in the comments. By the way, Fetty's another amazing runner you should have on the marathon, if he submits. He pointed out maybe it's because the spider sense didn't go off. So, thank you, Fetty, for helping me figure that out. I thought the plot was going to be that Kang. Boss fight number 2 is Hammerhead, a more obscure Spider-Man villain that sometimes is more associated with Daredevil. So the thing with Hammerhead is, after he's taken a certain amount of damage, a cutscene is triggered where he runs through those windows. We're trying to avoid that to make the boss fight as short as possible. So what we do is, we yank his gun away, because you can't fight him while he has the gun on. We do just a few small punches, and then we try to... Oh, right, I did fail it in this run. What you try to do is use the web gloves for stronger punches, and then hopefully beat him before the transition happens. So I did lose a significant amount of time here in this run. I completely forgot that, so when I go for better times in this, I will make sure to not do that. Spidey and the Machine. The level's in biotech. This is another level with a skip. These levels are kind of infamous for their frame rates. Like, remember how I said this game doesn't run very well on PlayStation? Yeah, these levels are some of the worst. The fact that I was able to hit that switch, like with the right jump just as a cutscene was playing, I still don't know how I did that. In fact, I don't know if that's ever happened in a run for anybody else before. I've been meaning to ask people about it. This level is very much point A to point B. We're going to use a web zip here. Like I said earlier, Spidey's hitbox changes. He's almost paper thin, so that allows us to zip past those lasers and not have to solve the puzzle that deactivates the lasers. And I guess as a failsafe, because the game would think you already had the lasers turned off, they turn off, we can just run through. Zip into the vents. Spidey quotes Die Hard, because that's the kind of thing he does. As mentioned, the zips are the fastest way to move, so whenever you can zip, that's your best method of movement, especially if you can zip without aiming. I failed to do that here and got injured, losing some time here. When I'm really on my game, I can zip past all that stuff, no problem. Though if I'm not mistaken, I somehow got a gold split on this level in this run. I don't know how, considering how sloppy my movement was in here. Yeah. That still blows my mind. It could have just been by, like, a split second, but still. This next level here, Mission Spidey, this is another one with skips. Once again, we're not going to do the skips. Instead, we are going to complete all the tasks as intended. There are a bunch of switches to deactivate force fields blocking our way, and we have to accomplish tasks to make the switches be available. The first one is pretty simple. There are 3 generators creating those drones that were shooting at Spidey. We just have to destroy them. Just shoot 3 impact webbings at each generator and you're all set. And then the switch in the back of the room will be open, and then we can deactivate it to get rid of a force field. A thing I grabbed right here is taser webbing. This is one of the 2 web power-ups you get in this game, and admittedly this one is way more useful than the first one. In fact, I didn't even grab the first one because there was no point. It's just ice webbing, doesn't really do anything special. Taser webbing will take out the robotic enemies much quicker. So instead of jumping in front of these laser turrets to get them to shoot at each other, we will use the taser webbing to zap them out quickly. Oh, flashing white warning, sorry. Thankfully, that is the only time you get flashing lights like this. Yeah, if this game was re-released now, I'm sure they would tone that down. There's one more task here. It's kind of the most infamous. Once again, it's hard just because there's a lot of things you have to keep track of. So, behind that force field are some drones with heat sensors. And what we have to do is raise the heat in the room so that Spidey's body temperature matches it, and therefore the drones can't detect him. All the while, you have to hit 3 switches with a force field that flips between on and off. It is possible to shoot with bad timing, and then the force field is still on, hurting Spidey. It's hard to get the timing right if you accidentally shoot it while it's up. I've gotten stuck on that way more than I should have, to the point where I get significant hit by a lot of rockets by the drones. Corkscrew. This level doesn't technically have out-of-bounds skips, but the zip line breaks this level in half. You're supposed to zip up or swing up to these different platforms and hit switches, but if you know the right spots where Spidey can zip up, you don't have to do any of that. I'm looking essentially for platforms that you would normally swing to zip up to the next level. Hit the switches in a specific order. I'll deactivate one, and then I'll try to jump and shoot impact webbing at the other to help me stay close to the next platform I want to zip up to. If you're fast enough, you can get past the crushing iron doors, but otherwise you gotta wait a cycle. It's essentially, this game's equivalent to the frame rules in Super Mario Brothers. Basically, either you get through the level blazingly fast, or you take way too long. I somehow got good cycles the whole time on this level. Really difficult to do, even if you've played this game a lot. Took a lot of practice to get good at just doing the zip-ups. Next boss fight, the Lizard. Fun fact, the Lizard was going to be a boss in Spider-Man 2000, but was cut, I believe, due to development constraints. Instead, you fight Venom a second time. What we have to do in this level is create an antidote for the Lizard to turn him back into our friend, Dr. Connors. We have to shoot him with it to make him vulnerable, and then you have to hit him as hard as possible. This level can be kind of RNG heavy. Basically, the way the Lizard behaves is kind of erratic, and you never quite know what he's going to do. What you want to do is you want to shoot him from far away enough that you can pick up these bottles and throw them at him. If he's too close, Spidey will punch towards the Lizard instead of picking up bottles. Using the auto lock-on helps. I messed up this fight big time because I ran out of the antidote and I had to wait for more to form. To be faster, I only created one batch of the antidote. So if you're really, which can save you a decent amount of time. However, if you screw up like I did, then you lose a lot of time waiting for more antidote. In world record runs, people just get it in one shot. That's all I can say. A lot of the RNG is really not like RNG as a random number generation, but more as Richard Garfield, the creator of Magic the Gathering, calls it, uncertainty in outcome. You're uncertain how Lizard is going to behave. You're uncertain if, due to the frame rate, your button inputs will actually be read, amongst other things. This was my biggest time loss in this particular run. I have gotten Lizard in one cycle before. I just got pretty unlucky in this one. The Gauntlet here, this is another level that was altered slightly for 9/11. It was originally called Aces High, which is another rock reference. We had Hangar 18, which is a Megadeth reference. Aces High is a reference to Iron Maiden and their album Power Slave, which the classic first-person shooter game is named after. But of course, because of 9/11 and planes, anything that referenced planes was either toned down or removed. In fact, the Corkscrew was originally called Downward Spiral, and Wind Tunnel was originally called The Plane. And finally, the last boss battle actually takes place on... It was supposed to be the World Trade Center towers, but of course that couldn't be done, so they changed the building to make it unrecognizable, and then instead of calling the level Top of the World, they changed it to The Best Laid Plans. I don't know whether or not I would go more into the trivia of how this game was altered after 9/11. I feel like it could be considered a touchy subject, so maybe. I know it's a thing people discuss about this game quite a bit, but if it would be preferred I didn't for the marathon, I completely understand. Just let me know in advance, and I'll make sure to bring up trivia about other aspects of the game instead. Versus Sandman. This is our next boss fight. Sandman is a cycle-based fight, because he is not vulnerable on his own. What you have to do is you need to get the water pressure up in this construction site, and then you need to hit him with water to make him vulnerable. The fastest you can beat him is with 2 cycles of water. If you take 3, that's a lot of time loss. There's a specific combo I use to hit him the hardest. I put on web spikes, which is the web over my fists, but I do kick, kick, punch instead of punch, 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 so the web spikes last longer. The third hit, as you would expect, would be the weakest, so that's the best one to have the web spikes on, and you want it to last as long as possible. I lost a bit of time here because if Sandman's far away enough, he'll just do the attack where he shoots out a, like a sandblast, instead of following you and trying to hit you with his fists. So this bike could have been faster. Thankfully, I still got it in 2 cycles, but my PB of this fight is like 1 minute and 4 seconds. On its own, not in an actual run. That could have been bad. That could have been really bad. Another level here that tanks the frame rate quite a bit because there's a lot going on. It's also one of the more annoying levels because what's happened is there is a generator creating an electrical barrier, and instead of Spidey being able to use his smarts to turn it off, or even using his webbing somehow, what we have to do is we have to take out these samurai displays that have somehow come to life thanks to Electro. We have to destroy them and throw the pieces at this generator. Come to think of it, what's this generator doing in the middle of this display? That's what I want to know. What helps us speed up the level a little bit is pressing the instant lock-on button. So we can lock onto the generator and throw the pieces from a bit farther away than if we were doing it normally. Plus, it helps us be more certain that we've actually thrown it and that it will land on the generator. A piece lost means another samurai destroyed. And even though we can destroy samurai quickly by just shooting 2 things of impact webbing, you still have to look around and find another samurai statue. And that can take a long while if you don't know what you're doing. I'm sure, if I'm not mistaken, on other difficulties, you have to use way more suits of armor. Thankfully on easy, we only have to use 5, which means we just take out the 2 at the beginning, the 2 in this room, and 1 that was kind of off to the side. In fact, I used the one that was off to the side as a way to go on a path that allows me to get to this room without retracing my steps too much. There's a line that gets cut off here. You can clearly tell he said, huh, but it got cut off in the recording for whatever reason. Rock of Ages. This is another level that's difficult casually until you realize it's really easy to just zipline up displays. What you're meant to do is climb up the walls, avoid the lightning rings, and then if your spider sense goes off, you're supposed to zipline to the other wall to not get hit. Also, sorry for the capture quality here. Of course, I gotta brighten up the image so that, you know, the ever dark composite video of the PS2 is actually visible. You zip up from this car and you're all set. It's hilarious. This goes from one of the most frustrating levels in the game, where you can easily get knocked down to the beginning and start over, to one of the simplest just by using zipline. Second to last boss, Electro. Electro is pain, because you don't know how he's going to act, and when you get up here to punch him, he will do an electric barrier to knock you off. The strategy I've found that helps me out a bit is I get to these platforms, because Electro will want to use his electricity to move objects to hit you, which means I can more easily get close to him and get a few punches in before he creates that barrier. Even with that, though, Electro is still pretty unpredictable. And of course, you have to keep redoing your web gloves over and over, because either you swing away, or if you get hit by the barrier he creates, that makes your web gloves go away. Once again, my PB for this as an individual level is just over a minute. I do not get that time here, because he keeps hitting me with the barrier. Still a better split than most of my runs in the past, but this one is painful to watch, admittedly. And that is with knowing the strats that I know now. The nice thing was... Oh, wait, I didn't get that web cart. Never mind, I thought I did. Okay. Now for the final level. The level that was supposed to take place on the World Trade Center towers, but then they altered it to make it look like two buildings put together instead of, you know, the Twin Towers. It does, funny enough, make the level easier, because now there's a bridge connecting the towers, whereas there was a wide space that Spidey could have fallen down if Electro had hit him. Now, what I'm doing first is I'm going to this tower, because if we do not take out this tower, Electro can recharge his health. So we do that first, so he does not have a chance to recharge. Next up, we go to these generators. We take out their capacitors. What this will do is, if we can trick Electro into hitting this generator, he will make himself vulnerable. And then we can do the same kick, punch, punch combo. The thing is, though, Electro has a tendency to troll you in this boss fight. Because he will either... You will be, like, just off to the side of a generator, and he'll shoot just off to the side instead of actually hitting said generator. Or he will create an electric barrier blast like he did in the last boss fight, which makes this fight pretty difficult. I lost like 20 seconds, I think, to bad luck in my previous time, my 3320, and I've lost a lot of time on this run too for that reason. See, if he had shot a lightning bolt there, that would have hit the generator and I could have started the next cycle. But nope. I still get him in 2 cycles, but as you can see here, still losing quite a bit of time. Time ends when the screen goes to gray. There we go. And there you have it. That is my speed run of Spider-Man 2 Enter Electro in the No Skips Hardware category. Thank you for watching, and I hope you will consider having this as part of your marathon. Take care, and have a nice day.